Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm running down my top 10 solo games for new gamers. You can call these lightweight games, gateway games, welcoming games. We have a lot of names for these. If you're a new or inexperienced gamer and you're looking to jump into solo gaming, these 10 games are a great way to start. They're going to be a great introduction into some of the different mechanisms and styles of gameplay without overloading you with too many rules or too much complexity. But these games are also just great games and will work for even hardcore experienced gamers who are looking for something a little bit more relaxing, a little bit more casual that will play quickly. I often break these games out, especially in the evening when I just want something a little simpler, and they work great because they're just excellent, interesting, fun games. I'm very excited to highlight some of these because often when we talk about gateway games or welcoming games, we focus on multiplayer. And these simple solos tend to be left out of the discussion. So I'm very happy to shine the light on these, and I hope you enjoy the list. Let's just dive right in. My number 10 is a game about birds. And no, it's not that game about birds. This one you've probably never heard of. It's called Birdie Fight. I believe this was also released under the name Songbirds, which is a shame because Birdie Fight is one of the greatest names I've ever heard for any game. Imagine how great Wingspan would be if it was named Birdie Fight. Anyway, this is a very simple, puzzly little abstract card game. You have 4 different types of birds, and they are competing over these berries, which are these little point tokens. And you have a hand of 2 cards, and one at a time, you're adding a card to this 5x5 grid. When a row or column of this 5x5 grid is completely filled, you're going to look at the different birds, and whichever bird has the most strength in that row or column, they're going to win that token. At some point in the game, you're going to decide which of the 4 colors of birds is your favorite. And you're going to score all the points that that type of bird manages to take. But you're going to subtract the points of the other 3 birds from that. And you're going to hope to get a positive score. You can also try to beat your own high score. The other little twist in the game is if 2 birds have matching strengths, those cancel each other out. And in that way, a weaker bird could actually get the points tokens, or no bird at all. Trying to manipulate that in your favor is a big part of the game. This plays super quick, very easy, and because you only have those 2 cards in your hand, the way that the cards come out makes a big difference in how you're trying to plan and make everything work. That's my number 10, Birdie Fight. Number 9 is Herbaceous. This is a lightning fast card game where you're doing set collection, and it has this really wonderful drafting mechanism where you're drawing 3 cards and you're going to place 1 in the community garden, 1 in your own personal garden, and then 1 in the discard pile. The trick is you're drawing them 1 at a time and deciding where to put it. So there's a little bit of press your luck there where you might be looking for a particular herb. Ooh, I really need some sage, but you draw the first one, you can put it in the discard pile, you draw another one, you put it in the community garden, hoping to get what you need. And then you're just making sets in different ways. You know, this pot needs all of the same type of herb. This pot needs different herbs. This pot needs pairs of herbs. Very simple and straightforward. You can knock out a solo game of this in like 5-10 minutes tops. It's really, really fast and kind of addictive. I mean, this is a really incredibly simple game, so it may not have the legs of some of the other ones. But if you just have a little bit of time and you just want to knock out a game real quick, this is a great one. And it's very portable. It can come in a really small little package. So there you go. That is number 9, Herbaceous. Number 8 is Avenue. Now, this is a roll and write, or I guess technically a flip and write game. And there are many roll and write / flip and write games that would be perfect for a list like this. Most of them are quite simple and easy to learn and play fast. So you can go ahead and just slot your favorite roll and write in this number 8 position. For me, Avenue is one of the simplest ones that I still find compelling. And the most compelling aspect of it is the scoring system. You are just simply flipping a card and drawing that shape of path, trying to create a network of paths to connect the different grapes together, to connect up to the various different cities in order to score the grapes. So you're creating this network, but the trick is you don't know how long a round is going to be because you keep flipping these cards until a certain number of yellow cards show up. And once that happens, then the round is over and you score. And you're only scoring for whatever city is the city that's going to score for that round. So you don't know the order that the cities are going to be scored in. So it's tricky. The other interesting thing is each round you have to score higher than your previous round, or else you score nothing and you reset. So you don't want to score too many points in the beginning because you have to keep increasing. And that puts even added pressure on you to try to create a large network that will continue growing and continue earning you more points throughout the course of the game. It's one of those games that often either really works out for you or is a complete disaster because, you know, you pushed your luck too far and you didn't get the cards that you needed, or the round ended before you thought it would and you weren't quite able to fill everything in that you needed to. So there you go. Avenue is a really fun, simple roll and write, and that's my number 8. Number 7 is Long Shot, the dice game. This one's really unique because I can't think of another solo racing game where you're, racing horses and betting on horses. That's usually a game where you want more people at the table. And Long Shot the Dice game is one that works up to 8, I think, and works really well at that count. But as a solo game, it's actually a lot of fun. Now, this one is definitely a little bit more complex than the other ones I've mentioned so far, but it's actually still pretty simple, especially considering you're running an AI opponent, but all you're doing on your turn is rolling the dice, moving the horsies along, and doing a simple action. And then just based on your roll, you just consult a little table, and the AI opponent, whose name is Roland Wright, they just do another simple action, and you just keep going like that. It's actually really streamlined and easy and smooth running. You can check out my playthrough to see more, to see it in action. And again, this one's definitely longer than the previous ones I've mentioned, but I think this game is a really great introduction into, having an AI opponent, and gives you that feel that you're not just playing against the game, but you're playing against another entity that is, scoring and, maybe buying horses that you wanted to, or, doing things like that, moving your horses back. And also the game is a little bit on the easier side. So I think that works well as an introductory sort of a solo game. And since it provides you such a unique experience that you can't really get with a lot of other solo games, I think this is a great one to try out. It almost feels like a solo party game, which is just a very unique feel. Really highly recommend Long Shot, the dice game. Number 6 is Tiny Towns. Now this is a funny one because I actually play by different rules than the solo variant. The game comes with solo variant rules where essentially you always have 3 cards laid out that have resources on them. And so you just select one of those and you put that resource on the board, and then you draw another one. So it's basically you always have 3 different resource cards available for you to choose from, which means most of the time, whatever resource you want, it's there, or it's going to be there pretty soon. And it definitely makes for a less random kind of game. For me, I like to play with what I believe is called the Town Hall variant, which is a way of playing that I prefer even when playing multiplayer. And in that version, you're actually shuffle up that resource deck and you draw 2 cards. You get to use those resources. And then the third resource, you get to pick anything you want. Which sounds like that might actually be less random, but it's actually a lot more random. It's much more difficult, and you can easily get yourself into trouble not getting the resources that you need. but I sort of like that tension and I like that randomness. In this game, you have this tiny little 4x4 grid, and you are putting down resources into shapes in order to build these buildings. And as you start building buildings with these shapes using very specific resources, the buildings that you've previously built are now getting in your way, and it becomes more and more difficult to fit these shapes in to get more buildings on your little board. And the buildings all have different ways of scoring, and, different adjacencies, or just based on the number of them that you put out there. And those change every game because you have cards that have different scoring conditions for each of the different types of buildings. So it's just this very simple puzzle that can be incredibly difficult and like frustrating. But I like that. I like the frustration. And it's very short. It doesn't take a long time. Very simple, but man, do I find it difficult to do well in. But anyway, that's my number 6, Tiny Towns. Number 5 is Sprawlopolis. Or as an alternative, you can use the standalone expansion / sequel, Agropolis. This is a micro game from Button Shy, and a lot of Button Shy games would actually work for this. This is just an 18-card game where you are doing some tile laying, and you have these 3 scoring conditions that you're trying to meet. And you just are flipping over these cards, laying them out, creating a grid, trying to get the roads to connect, trying to create clusters of residential or industrial, and trying to meet these different scoring conditions. And it is really difficult, very challenging to do well. And it's just infinitely replayable, even though it's 18 cards, because every time you're just flipping up 3 random scoring conditions. This one almost feels like a classic at this point, the ultimate travel game. I talked about it before, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but Sprawlopolis, fantastic, number 5. Number 4 is Nautilion, but again, you could do any of the Oniverse games. Any of them would really work for this list. Onirim is perhaps the easiest of the lot. That's a simple card game. Nautilion's my favorite because, one, at its simplest, it's incredibly simple. You can strip away a lot of the rules and just play a very simple version of the game, which is a great introduction. And then as you get good at that, you can start to add on additional modules and additional rules that make the game more complex, more interesting, more things going on. I really like the way that this game scales up that way. But at its heart, Nautilion is so interesting because it's kind of a roll and move game. You're rolling 3 dice and you're choosing where you want those dice to go. It's very interesting, but within that, you create these really interesting decisions. As you move along this board, you're trying to pick up certain people to fill up your ship. You're trying to race the Phantom Menace, I believe it's called. And so you want to take the higher numbers, but you also want to take the lower numbers so you can pick up the people that you need along the way. It's great. It's really fun. And I don't know if this one gets the love that it deserves. Arion is also incredible, again, in this Oniverse series of games. I pretty much recommend them all. They're all great. Nautilion, my personal favorite, that is my number 4. Number 3 is Cafe. This game and Longshot the Dice game I just recently played and was blown away by both of them. This is such an interesting game that's mixing tile laying with cards, some simple drafting, and resource management with this great theme, cool artwork, all in such a small and simple package that plays relatively quickly. I'm really loving this one. And it has this great coffee making theme where you're going through the process of making coffee. You're producing the beans, and then you're drying them out, and then you're roasting them, and then you're delivering them to the different cafes or into your little warehouse. And that's going to score you points at the end of the game. So you're drafting cards, and the trick is you want the different symbols to be adjacent to one another, because that gives you different efficiencies. That helps you do more actions. But you also have to cover up spaces. You have to cover up either 2, 3, or 4 visible spaces every time you place a new card down. So as you're building out your tableau, you're having to cover up and destroy things, and it becomes a really tricky puzzle of how to make that all work. I'm a big fan of tile laying and of drafting games, and this does it in a very unique way. I am just over the moon with this very simple card game. My number 3, Cafe. Number 2 is Cascadia. This might be the hottest, welcoming game around at the moment, and it's one that I really love as well. The solo is incredibly easy. You're just drafting and tile laying, much like Cafe. Here you're drafting these terrain tiles along with animal tiles that you're then going to put on those terrains. And the animals are going to score in different ways, and you're also going to score for having large clusters of the terrain. And sort of just like Tiny Towns, you have all these different scoring cards that can change up the game, so it adds a lot of replayability. But other than that, everything is very simple and straightforward. It's got this wonderful, welcoming nature theme, and it looks great on the table all put up. Please, this was one of the earliest playthroughs that I did on the channel, so go check that out. It's just a quick 6-minute playthrough of it. This is one that's incredibly popular for good reason. My number 2, Cascadia. And my number 1 solo board game for new gamers is actually the first playthrough I ever did on the channel, and that's Lost Expedition. The reason it was the first playthrough I did on the channel was because this was my favorite lightweight card game for solo play. It's got this wonderful, evocative artwork and this really interesting card play. It's kind of a survival game. You have these large cards, and you're just playing these cards out into a line, ordering them, and then resolving the different effects on the cards. And the cards have, positive and negative effects. They're giving you different resources, and then you're using those resources to try to survive a lot of these negative effects, hoping to not take a lot of wounds on your characters and just be able to get through to progress down this track, moving through the jungle, trying to find, El Dorado, right? Or the lost city of Z. And the way that you play the cards out, it changes depending on whether you're in the morning or the evening. Check out the playthrough to see exactly how it works, but it's just so simple, but also so compelling, right? As you try to order these cards so that the effects will happen in the order that you need them to. And you have different cards that will also let you change the order of the cards. It's really thinky and puzzly, and at the same time has a lot of, thematic integration. Just incredibly awesome card game. You gotta check this one out. My number 1 simple solo, Lost Expedition. Well, there you go. 10 excellent games for really pretty much anybody. Whether you're just starting out in solo gaming or you're an old vet and you want something more casual, these games will make a great addition to anybody's collection. Make sure you check out the channel because I have playthroughs of most of these games, if not all of them. So go through, check those out, and as always, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.